Greetings, you guys. It's time for another weekly recommendation from Imperial Comics and Games. And this week, I am glad to recommend one of my all-time favorite stories and books, Locke Key, Welcome to Lovecraft. This is a graphic novel that originally began as a comic, of course, that I just cannot recommend enough. I've recommended it in the past, and I'll continue to do so. It's written by Joe Hill, who is actually the son of Stephen King, and is illustrated by Gabriel Rodriguez. A couple things I want to share about this book and the reason why I recommend it. One, it is very much a horror comic and a suspense comic. And for those that aren't familiar with horror comics, there's a long lineage of horror books dating way back through the history and the life of the comic book industry. For me, this was one of the very first horror books that I ever got into. I never had an interest in it. And I kind of accidentally came across this book and I got instantly drawn and pulled into it. Locke Key follows a family that has, of course, moved to the scary Northeast, which is the setting for almost all Stephen King books, to this creepy home, which is an ancestral home for them. And when they get there, they begin to see all of these various strange things happening. In addition to being one of my first horror comic books I've ever read, it's also really my introduction to Lovecraft and Lovecraftian mythos and the Cthulhu mythos. I'd always heard those terms thrown around, and I've had a strange person or random person say Azathoth this or whatever that, but I never really dug into the lore of these things and the lore of the Cthulhu mythos. Well, this book is very much centered in that Lovecraftian type of aura, a Lovecraftian type of theme. In particular, it's going to focus in on just how insignificant humans are, which is really the overarching theme from what I gather of a lot of the Lovecraft stories. Here's why it's so interesting. This book has a deceptive art form. When you flip through the pages and you see it, you would think that this is more of a kiddie or family-friendly book, in large part because all the characters have these massive, almost anime-like eyes. But the pupils are different than what you would see in an anime or in a manga. It's definitely a Western style, but because of the size of their eyes and the nature of the artwork, it has a very cartoony vibe. But then you turn on like the second page of the book and you see some of the most gruesome and violent acts. I think that they chose this particular art form to kind of soften the graphic nature of the story, because this is very much a horror story. It's a hard R story. There's going to be violence in this book. There's going to be some pretty strange things that happen in this book. But if you can get past that, you're in for a great story. So they get to this creepy home, and I'm not going to spoil too much of the book, but they get to this creepy home and they begin to find out that there are keys scattered throughout the home and the area that allows them to unlock different abilities and things. For example, there's a key that they can use that will allow them to separate their spirit from their body. There's a key that they can use to literally open someone's head and see their memories and to alter their thoughts and to alter their memories. And this is just scratching the surface. This is an expansive series, and I actually read it as it was being released issue by issue. And now that the story's over and it's been collected in a trade paperback, this is a great book to just sit down and read at your leisure. And I can almost guarantee that if you start, you're going to want to read the whole thing through, because it is such a compelling story. So if you're looking for something to read, looking for something different, I cannot recommend Locke Key highly enough. We have the initial volume of the trade paperback here at Imperial Comics and Games. And if you're interested in this sort of thing, come on, check it out. We have other books as well in that same genre. And I don't think you can go wrong with this book. Take care.